It was 2 a.m. when the man walked in, dragging something large and dark behind him. There was something off about the way it moved. And about him too. The receptionist felt it the second he stepped in. He had this strange, stiff walk, uneven, like he was a scarecrow with one leg shorter than the other. His greasy blonde hair was hidden under a big hat, and the sound of spurs clicking echoed as he shuffled along. I went back and watched the security footage later. His lips were thin, pale, and his crooked teeth barely showed. He had this half-smile that seemed like he was seconds from laughing, if you could even call it that. He was dragging a huge black Rottweiler behind him. The dog was fighting it, its back legs sliding on the floor as it struggled. The camera didn't capture sound, but later, the receptionists told me what he had said. He's acting possessed. They handed him some intake forms. He hobbled back to a bench, dragging the dog with him like it weighed nothing. I watched through the camera lens as another client holding a cat carrier hurried to get away from him. I took a look at his paperwork. The address was some warehouse out in the middle of nowhere, 3 states away. The name he gave was Keeton, seemed fake. Nothing on record, no online presence. It didn't sit right with me. But the dog's name? Mutt. That part one believed. You're probably wondering why I even bothered checking. It's not something I do regularly. But the weirdness from the past few nights made me want to look into it. When he handed back the forms, he sat down again, dragging the dog with him like a heavy sack. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed, eyes staring straight ahead. He moved like a corpse propped up by strings. His dog barely moved either. It just sat there, waiting. We see all sorts of people here, some nice, some not so much. But this guy? Something was off in a way I can't quite put into words. I stepped out into the lobby to bring him into an exam room. It took him a moment to notice me, like he was in a daze. Then the smell hit me, stale cigarettes, gas fumes, and something worse underneath. A rotten, greasy stench that just hung there in the air. The dog sat motionless, vacant. It felt like someone had drained all life from it. As it sat there, drool began dripping from its mouth, pooling onto the floor. I introduced myself and got to work. So, what's going on with Mutt today? Keeton didn't answer right away. His eyes drifted up to the ceiling like he was focused on something only he could see, something floating above us. Oh, he ain't acting right. He ain't been eating much. This was the point where most clients start rambling. Some could go on for hours if you let them. Keeton, though, he had said what he needed to and seemed done. He just kept staring up at the ceiling through those greasy locks of hair. When I knelt down to check the dog's heart rate, the second my fingers touched its skin, a chill ran through me. That feeling, you know, the one right before a storm hits? Like something bad is coming. Its vitals were fine, heart rate, breathing all normal, but its skin felt cold, its body temperature was only 97 degrees. Lower than it should be. I checked for dehydration, then peeled back its lips to see the gums. That's when I felt it, like I shouldn't be so close. Its gums were pale. And its pupils? Locked onto me. Dilated. The unease crawled inside me, growing stronger. Don't turn your back on him, Keeton said. I stopped, halfway turned. What? If you're gonna walk away from him, do it facing him. Otherwise, something bad might happen. I exhaled, irritated. He had watched me get close to the dog, check its temperature, listen to its heart. And now he decided to warn me? That didn't sit right. I hated the way this whole situation felt, him, the dog, the gut-wrenching sense that something was wrong. I slowly backed away, facing the dog. It was staring at me, cold, like it was waiting for me to make a wrong move. A few moments later, Dr. Harkham, our on-site emergency vet, came in. Old school, no nonsense. He barely exchanged words with Keeton. He recommended blood work and an overnight stay with fluids. The dog needed to warm up too. Keeton just sat there with that goofy half-grin, like he was in on some private joke. But he nodded, accepting the treatment plan. We moved to take the dog into the back treatment area. I slipped a muzzle on, of course. And that's when I noticed it, the dog was refusing to walk. Earlier, Keeton had dragged it, but now? It wasn't acting lazy, it was defiant. I could see in its eyes, it wasn't going anywhere unless it decided to. I had Ryan, one of my bigger staff members, carry it for me. When he picked it up, he glanced at me. We didn't need words to know that something was off. Not just with the dog, but the air around us, it felt heavy. When we tried to draw blood from its jugular, the dog didn't react. Ryan held it steady, one hand on each side of its head, holding its jaws apart. The needle went in, the syringe filled. The blood felt strangely warm, not like it had just been pumping through a living body. I ran it through the machines. Mild dehydration, with some elevated lipase levels suggesting pancreatitis. We placed it in a heated kennel, tucked it under blankets, and hooked up an IV catheter. Keeton was gone by the time we finished, but the relief was short-lived. The dog stayed, and with it came something else, a presence, thick and suffocating, closing in like fog. That was 3 days ago. The night had been quiet, which was rare for an emergency hospital. We had another dog in a kennel just a few spaces down from the Rottweiler. It was a cattle dog that had undergone emergency surgery, but it had been doing fine. Normal vitals, good appetite, responsive. 2 hours later, I went to check on it. The cattle dog was dead. It had ripped its own incision wide open. The cone was left discarded on the floor. This wasn't just some light licking or nibbling, it had torn itself apart. Even as the dog's intestines spilled out onto the floor, it kept attacking them. It bit at its own insides like they were venomous snakes, ready to strike. The dog was slumped over in a puddle of blood. Its head hung limply against the floor. Bright red streaks snaked across the kennel, running toward the drain behind it. I could hear the faint, wet sound of blood being sucked down the drain. The kennel was a mess. Blood painted the walls, splattered across the ceiling. The dog's insides had leaked a mix of bile and partially digested remnants. The cattle dog's eyes were vacant, dull, glittering in the harsh light. I stood frozen for a moment, taking it all in. The raw violence of it. The grotesque reality of what had just happened. 2 kennels down sat Mutt. His eyes were locked on me as I processed the scene, no emotion on his face. He watched every movement, his expression unreadable. The IV drip continued to run, the heater hummed softly. The only sound in the room was the blood moving through the pipes. Mutt didn't pant or make a sound. His eyes gleamed under the harsh light, and for a moment, they almost looked human. Dr. Harkham made the call, but I could hear every word, every muffled sob through the thin office walls. The owner didn't just cry, they wailed. I've seen plenty of death in my line of work, but this wasn't just another case. This wasn't some bad luck. There was something else at play here. The entire atmosphere in the hospital shifted. In all my years, I had never seen a dog open itself up like that. It was as if its body was nothing more than a bag to be unzipped, its insides spilling out. Mutt's eyes followed every movement, the bloody towels, the mop buckets, the cattle dog-sized body bag being zipped up and labeled. That night should have been a break. It should have felt like a quiet shift after a chaotic day. But it didn't. It felt like the calm before a storm. Like I was standing in a field, staring at dark clouds forming on the horizon, knowing something worse was coming. Hours later, well after the cattle dog's death, I heard the steady beep of a monitor from the kennel area. It was the IV pump hooked up to Mutt. I didn't want to go check on him, but I couldn't ignore it. I grabbed Ryan to come with me. We slipped the muzzle over Mutt's face. He didn't resist. Didn't flinch. He just let it happen, his eyes tracking our every move. Only his eyes shifted, 2 dark orbs taking in everything around him. It felt like he was studying us, learning. Listening. The dog had somehow kinked the IV line beneath its paw. We straightened it out, smoothed it down. A simple fix, or so we thought. But then the light above Mutt's kennel flickered. At first, it was barely noticeable. Just a small flicker. Then it sputtered, dimmed, and cut out entirely. The room fell into darkness. Ryan and I froze. The only light was a faint glow from the hallway behind us. We exchanged a glance but didn't speak. Neither of us wanted to name the feeling creeping up on us. The air in the room thickened. It buzzed, like static before a storm. Then the two tube lights above Mutt's kennel flared so brightly it hurt to look at them. There was a loud pop, followed by a sizzling sound, and then, they died. Everything went silent. Ryan had his back to Mutt. That's when Mutt lunged. It was a surge of violence, even though the muzzle was still on. A blur of black as Mutt's body shot forward. His muzzled face slammed against Ryan's side, again and again, each blow more forceful than the last. Ryan screamed. The dog was silent except for the mechanical clicking of its jaws, snapping beneath the muzzle. Spit flew everywhere. Ryan twisted, trying to get away, but the attack had caught him off guard. I acted on pure instinct. I flung open the kennel door. Mutt collided with Ryan again, this time with such force that it knocked him off balance. Ryan struggled to grab hold of Mutt. Then, when Ryan finally turned to face Mutt, the dog stopped. It stood there motionless, bathed in the darkness. Something was wrong with this dog. It wasn't neurological. This was something deeper. There was a predatory intelligence behind its eyes, but it felt much darker, like a cancer spreading slowly beneath the surface. Ryan and I both stood there, shaking, deeply unsettled. Later, he showed me a bruise under his ribs, a deep purple mark that spread like a flower opening beneath his skin. Neither of us said anything about it. The rest of the night passed without incident. I focused on my other cases, a Chihuahua struggling with pneumonia, a Persian cat having seizures, a tabby with mobility issues in its front legs. I went through the motions, but my mind was elsewhere. Ryan seemed off. Not in shock, not from fear or trauma. It was something deeper, something had broken inside him, something new. I left for the night still uneasy. Ryan didn't even wave goodbye when I passed by. I sat in my car and chain-smoked cigarettes, flicking the butts out the window and watching them hit the asphalt. My hands were shaking all the way home. When I finally collapsed into bed, I pulled my gun out of my purse and slid it under my pillow. And as the sun began to rise, my dreams turned dark. I dreamt of a black face, snarling in the shadows, leaning in close, sniffing at me. Its eyes were like endless, hollow pits, swirling with stars and galaxies. I felt the far-off sting of teeth sinking into my flesh, not a bite, not an attack, but a slow, deliberate pressure, like it was easing into my skin. When I woke, my sheets were soaked with sweat. When I arrived for my shift that night, the disappointment hit me like a cold wave the second I walked past Mutt's kennel. He was still there. The heater hummed softly. His eyes followed me. The lights above his kennel were still out, and the ones beside them had started flickering like a warning. Ryan called out sick. Said he'd been throwing up since the night before. I had a feeling there was more to his story, but I didn't have the time to think about it. I sent him a text, wishing him well. He read it, but didn't respond. And that unsettling man, Keeton. His phone went straight to voicemail when I tried calling about a case update. He wasn't coming back. He'd paid half his bill up front in crisp, old $100 bills. The other half? That wasn't going to happen. The night was busier than usual. I told my manager we shouldn't put any more dogs in that ward, but we didn't have a choice. The small animal ward was all the way across the building, and the larger dogs had to be placed in the bigger kennels. We admitted a Great Dane with liver disease. There was nowhere else to put him, so I placed him in the kennel farthest from Mutt's, 2 kennels down from where the cattle dog had torn itself apart. When I came back to check on them 10 minutes later, I stopped in my tracks. Mutt's kennel was wide open. The latch had come undone, and the door was swinging open. He wasn't on fluids anymore. Someone must have taken him off. No more beeping 4 pumps. And no sign of how the door had opened by itself. This section of the facility was empty this late at night. Mutt was sitting at the threshold. His jaw slack, his eyes unblinking. I shut the kennel and latched it again, then left to get 2 plates of food. As soon as I came back, the nausea hit. The kennel was open again. I hadn't heard anything. The door hadn't moved. The only way to open these kennels is with hands. Opposable thumbs. There's no way anyone could have been back here while I grabbed the food. I slammed the door shut again, this time locking it with a makeshift carabiner clip. I slid one plate of food under each kennel. The Dane got low-fat wet food, and Mutt got critical care. I turned to walk away when I heard it. A sound that froze me in place. Not a growl. Not a whine. It sounded like someone trying to speak while gargling water. Like a deep, guttural voice struggling to form words before spitting them out. It was a dog trying to talk. I turned around. Mutt sat there, silent now. But something was in the air. A presence, thick and electric. To my right, the Dane had begun to cry. The Dane was the one making those horrible noises. His food plate was spilled across the kennel floor, and his hackles were flattened. He backed up until his body pressed against the far wall. His eyes flicked upward toward the ceiling, and I knew right away, he was sensing something. Feeling something I couldn't see, but I could sense it too. I knew what he was feeling, because I felt it as well. When I reached for the door to the kennel, the crying stopped. The Dane's body trembled, and his whimpering shifted. It deepened, turning into a low, haunting sound that fluctuated like a tornado siren, high to low, then back again. Without warning, it stopped entirely. The Dane went still. Too still. And then, just like that, he started attacking his own leg. It wasn't chewing. It wasn't licking. He was ripping into it. Biting with brutal force, like he was tearing apart something much more than flesh. The sound of bone cracking echoed down the hall. Blood splattered across the kennel floor, pulsating with his heartbeats. This wasn't a dog in pain. This wasn't distress. This was something else. This dog was destroying itself with intent. I couldn't go in there. If I did, he'd likely turn that aggression on me. I'd be sent to the hospital if I tried to stop him. I turned and ran, shouting for help as I sprinted down the hallway. Dr. Harkham and two techs, Angie and Denise, came rushing out of an exam room, startled by my frantic screams. I grabbed a rabies catchpole and rushed back to the kennels. The Dane was still tearing into his leg. Not out of panic, but with a cold, deliberate calm. The flesh was shredded. Tendons and bits of bone exposed. Blood sprayed in rhythmic bursts, pulsing with his heart. I opened the kennel door carefully and looped the catchpole around his neck, tightening it hard. I forced his head away from the leg, stopping him from biting himself. He snapped at the air, frantic, but there was no sign of pain. No emotion behind it. Just a primal drive. Then he latched onto the metal pole. Not out of fear. Not out of rage. It was something else entirely. Something twisted in his instincts. The sound was unbearable, teeth shattering against metal, splintering, cracking. His leg was gone. Just a ragged mess of meat, exposed to the air, flapping as he chewed on the metal. I watched in horror as part of his fractured tooth fell out onto the floor. The catchpole was bloody, dented, but it was holding. Withstanding every forceful bite aimed at it. The Dane was weakening, blood pooling beneath him. By the time Dr. Harkham arrived with the others, the dog had slumped, its body twitching, biting at the air as though it were still fighting something invisible. We finally managed to inject a sedative. But it was too late. The blood loss had been too much. The Dane collapsed in a heap, his body twitching once more before finally going still. His eyes glazed over and then went blank, the light completely fading from them. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw Mutt. His lips pulled back in a snarl. When the hell is that damn dog going to leave? I snapped, pointing at him. Dr. Harkham shot me a sharp look. Blood streaked his white coat, and his eyes were hollow, sunken, worn down by something that had settled in long before Mutt came into the picture. Something's wrong with him, I insisted. With that dog. All I see is a dog that mutilated itself in our care and then bled out. And this is the second one in 2 days. Don't worry about that damn dog. He gestured sharply at Mutt, his frustration palpable. We've got bigger problems. Another owner to call. Another person to tell that their pet killed itself. Under my watch. God, this is a mess. He flicked blood off his fingers, wiping his face with a sleeve, his movements sluggish. He was a shell of the man he once was, years past burnout. He couldn't see what I saw. He couldn't see how Mutt was watching us. How his eyes lingered on the blood pooling beneath my feet, almost like he was enjoying it. Dr. Harkham sighed, dragging a hand down his face. We tried calling that creepy bastard again. His number's out of service. He ditched the dog on us. That meant we had to rehome him. It could take weeks. I couldn't do weeks with him. None of us could. And as I met Angie's eyes, I knew she felt the same. The silence in the hospital deepened as the night wore on, but something had shifted in the air. We were all hollowed out, drained by everything we'd seen, the cattle dog, the Dane, the blood. The 2 kennels soaked in red that we'd had to clean. Mutt still sat in his kennel, untouched food sitting at his feet, the heater humming quietly in the background. 2 more lights flickered out as I cleaned. I mopped blood off the floors, the thick, iron smell clinging to my skin. The towels we used were soaked with it, deep, ugly red. And through it all, Mutt never looked away from us. He loomed in the shadows of the corridor like a predator waiting. I told myself I'd figure something out. That I needed time. But time wasn't on my side. I was dumping a load of bloody towels into the laundry bin when I heard it. Eli Hissensen. I froze. The sound was thick, wet, slurred, like no dog's throat could ever make it. It wasn't a bark. It wasn't a growl. It was trying to speak. And the word it formed wasn't a sound, it was a name. My name. Allison. I turned, my stomach lurching. Mutt was sitting in his kennel, still. His muzzle slack, drool pooling on the blanket beneath him. His eyes were black holes, swallowing all the light in the room. I couldn't move. My mind tried to rationalize it, trying to force the impossible into something explainable. Maybe it was a monitor. Maybe I'd misheard it. Or maybe it was the pipes. Then the smell hit me, like a slap to the face. Rotting meat, something left in the sink for weeks, wedged in the unseen cracks of the world. It overwhelmed everything else, sharp and suffocating. And then I realized, the smell I'd caught when Keeton walked in, that greasy, rancid stench, it hadn't been him. It had been Mutt all along. I felt a primal urge to run. And so I did. I grabbed the blankets off the floor, shoved them into the laundry bin, and bolted. My hands shook as I slammed the lid shut. My heart hammered in my chest. Don't turn your back on it. Keaton's words crawled up my spine like a cold hand. He's acting possessed. I knew what Mutt had done to Ryan. I knew what he wanted to do to me. And now, I knew I wasn't waiting for him to act. I was going to kill him. I kept my head down the rest of the shift, going through the motions, my body moving on autopilot. My mind was elsewhere, focused on something darker, something I couldn't escape. When I got a moment alone, I pulled out the pentobarbital sodium and phenytoin sodium solution, Euthasol. It was that pink liquid, the one we used to put animals down. I drew up enough to kill a dog twice Mutt's size. There would be a discrepancy in the controlled substance log, but I could fix it. A couple of higher doses on euthanasia cases, spaced out just right. No one would notice. I locked the cabinet, slipped the syringe into my pocket. I knew what I was doing. I was committing a crime. I could lose my license, my career, end up in jail. But in my bones, I knew one thing for sure. That thing in the kennel? Whatever it was. It needed to die. The next morning, I walked into the hospital, the air thick with grief. Everyone was crying. Ryan was dead. He'd taken his own life in his trailer, sometime after leaving work. No details. No explanation. He was there one moment, gone the next. The police had come by to inform us, but they didn't stay long. They didn't need to. I knew, then. Ryan's death made everything clear. I couldn't wait for another dog to come into those kennels. Another staff member to break. I couldn't wait for another sign that it was too late. I worked through the grief. Through the horror. I pushed it all away for later, and focused on what needed to be done. I waited for the right moment, a lull between shift changes, when staffing was light. I approached Mutt's kennel. I saw him tilt his head, his eyes never leaving me as he tracked my every movement. It was like he was waiting for something. I swung open the kennel door and placed the muzzle on his face. My hands were sharp, almost too precise. I tightened the straps with an anger I hadn't felt in a long time. My heart didn't race, though. It was calm, steady. Grabbing Mutt's paw, I searched for the vein with practiced fingers, while the needle slid beneath his skin without hesitation. The syringe felt unearthingly warm in my palm. I pushed the plunger, pumping the thick pink liquid into him. It was a dose far too much for a dog, even a big one, but I emptied the entire thing. Normally, euthanasia is quick, an immediate drop, the muscles relaxing, life just slipping away. The eyes may stay open, but the soul vanishes. But Mutt didn't collapse. His chest rose and fell slowly, steady as ever. His muscles were frozen in place. His eyes, wide, black, and locked onto mine, didn't show the faintest sign of fading. This should have killed him. This dog should have been dead by now. The lights in the hall flickered and died, one by one, leaving nothing but the cold embrace of darkness. The air grew thick, like something was pressing in on me. The heater cut out, leaving the silence to creep in even further. Only the faint, greenish glow from the exit sign at the end of the hall illuminated the space. The shadows around me seemed to twist and shift. I couldn't move, couldn't take my eyes off what was happening in front of me. The kennel door slammed shut, sending a shiver up my spine. My breath caught in my throat. The silence was deafening, broken only by the slow, gurgling sound of Mutt's breathing. It felt like he was everywhere, his presence pressing against me, thick and heavy. Then, I heard it. Eliasson. The voice was strange, garbled, like it had been twisted and mangled beyond recognition. The words felt wrong, like they were being dragged through something dark and suffocating. My stomach turned. My hands fumbled for the latch. Sweat coated my palms, my breath coming out too loud in the crushing silence. The darkness felt like it was swallowing me whole, and the air smelled like rot, choking me. Then I felt it. A cold, lifeless hand wrapped around my ankle. I froze, panic surging through me. Something clawed at me, sharp and cold, dragging across the fabric of my pants. I could feel the static in the air, like a warning. Without thinking, I jerked away and ran. The door slammed open as I threw my shoulder into it, bursting into the hall, my feet slamming against the tile as I sprinted. Behind me, I heard the sound of the kennel door crashing open. The heavy thud of paws hitting the ground was unmistakable. He was coming for me. I ran blindly, my fingers brushing the wall as I searched for the end of the hallway. My hand skidded over the smooth surface, unable to find the latch or doorknob. All I could do was keep running. The pounding of paws was getting closer, faster now. It sounded like more than just one. The sound was almost like a stampede. No growls. No snarls. Just the rush of movement. I turned quickly, my back pressed to the door. The darkness beyond felt suffocating, closing it around me. The dim light of the exit sign was barely visible now, its weak glow fighting against the blackness. I saw the outline of something, a dark, hunched form, creeping just out of reach like a predator waiting for the perfect moment. Breathing filled the air, thick and wet. Then I felt a brush of movement, so close I could practically taste it. Without thinking, I bolted again. My instincts took over, driving me forward, without any clear plan, just pure survival. I didn't have time to think, only to act. I reached my locker, yanked it open, and scrambled through the clutter for my purse. The air shifted again, and a weight pressed against me. I felt it before I saw it, something dark and overwhelming, looming behind me. My fingers closed around the cold metal of my handgun. I whipped around, raising the barrel, squinting through the darkness. I fired. The first shot cracked through the air, lighting up the hallway like a camera flash. In that brief moment, I saw him, a smile twisted with malice. I squeezed off another shot. Then another. His body jerked with every bullet, but he didn't fall. The shots rang in my ears, and each one seemed to make the world pulse with its own energy. In the dim green light, I saw his lips twisted even further back, that hideous grin still plastered across his face. The final shot hit its mark, blasting the left side of his head apart, leaving a gaping hole. I watched as his jaws slackened, his tongue hanging out like a dead thing. He twitched even as he fell, his head jerking unnaturally. A thick, wet pop echoed in the hall as he crumpled to the ground. I stood there, gun shaking in my hands, my ears ringing from the sound of the shots. The darkness was still thick around me, pressing in, smothering me. Then came the footsteps. Shouting. Voices. Someone grabbed my arm and yanked me away. The lights flickered back to life, buzzing, flickering, and then stabilizing. For the first time, I saw what I had done. One shot had missed, buried in the tile, but the others had all found their target. Mutt lay still, his head a mess of blood and bone. His chest rose once, twice, and then fell silent. The muzzle was gone, he must have pulled it off during the chase. I didn't move. The hospital was a chaos of police officers swarming in, but I don't know who called them or when. They arrived fast. Questions came at me from all directions, but I couldn't process them. It all felt like a haze. They brought me into the back office, my hands still trembling, my ears echoing with phantom sounds. I knew what I needed to say, knew exactly how to spin it. Self-defense. My Uncle Philip was a defense lawyer, and we used to talk law during our fishing trips. So, I picked up a few things. And I played my role perfectly. That's why the police ended up letting me go. We wrapped Mutt up, bagged him, and shoved him in the freezer to wait for cremation. I took some time off work, spending the next few days in silence, trying to forget the sound of that voice. The way my name twisted out of that malformed mouth. Of course, you can guess, nothing worked. The memories didn't fade. Then, on the morning of my return to work, the phone rang. It was a blocked number. I swear, part of me knew that call was coming, even though it made no sense. So, I picked up. All I heard was slow, ragged breathing. Then, he started laughing. Like the whole thing had been one big joke. It was a low, drawn-out laugh, thick with something I couldn't quite place. Maybe it was tobacco, or something else, but it made my skin crawl. You shouldn't have killed it, little lady. Keeton. His voice slithered through the speaker, wrapping around me like a snake. His laughter grew, building until it filled the silence with something sinister. You've made everything so much worse. And just as his laughter turned into a roar, the line went dead. I sat there, phone pressed to my ear, staring into space. His words hung heavy in the air, like they were weighing it down. You've made everything so much worse. At first, I was confused. How did he even get my number? Then, panic set in. Those words, they hit me somewhere deep, a place I didn't want to acknowledge. The idea that I had made everything worse. And deep down, in a place I couldn't ignore, I knew something. I believed him.